Hello, can you hear me?
I sure can. How's it going? How come now you have like a perfect like Fabio camera angle, but on Live and Learn you only gave us the top down? I get the whole romantic novel cover of Dylan.
That's because I love you.
Aw, thanks, man. Let me turn you up a little bit. All right, what did you want to chat about? Was it PV stuff? And just FYI, full transparency, Ben of PV is in chat.
Perfect. That's great. Well, he should hear this.
Okay, all right.
Okay, so I want to talk to you about a few things because I don't get to talk domestic news very much in the United States, but this I think is important enough that this is the main thing I want to focus on, right? And I will be honest, I wanted to use yesterday to announce a project that I'm working on.
Shit, I'm sorry.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's it's all Pisco's fault. So it's not your fault. We'll all blame Pisco, of course. I saw the PV event. I did the PV event, and I was very energetic to participate with PV. And I'm going to be very blunt in this conversation. You don't need to join me in my bluntness, but I'm going to. My previous interactions with PV have not always been stellar. I'm not the only content creator that has not had stellar interactions with PV. I don't think it's necessary to bring up those interactions, but despite those interactions, and I'm saying this to give credit to PV, not to go after PV, despite those interactions, I still want to work with them. Out of all the creators that have been working with PV, I've probably been working with PV maybe the longest of anybody who's still participating in these events. I mean, I don't think IRI does these events anymore. I don't think a lot of creators, for any number of reasons, have decided I'm not going to for X, Y, or Z. It might be what happened with people's addresses. It might be X, Y, Z. Again, we don't need to go into it. But I still wanted to do that event, both for the platform and for the cause that I think the Democratic Party has to come up with an authentic message that will connect to working people. It's still the most unpopular party in the United States, and that's with Donald Trump in office, which is embarrassing. So that means that obviously the current pathway we're going on, it isn't working. But that event, for some reason, something about it, not the fact that I was invited on, not even how the event even went, but that event angered me somewhere in my soul deeply. And it wasn't that the people involved, like, oh, I had beefs with X, Y, and Z. I don't care with that. I will work with Hassan. I will pick him up and go up a fucking mountain if it means getting rid of Donald Trump or getting universal health care or fighting for the rights of people who are getting torn to shreds by bombs right now, right? Because that's why we're engaged in politics. This is not fucking school. This is not a club. We're engaged in politics because we want to improve the lives of people. To see a candidate being fundraised for in a progressive space who doesn't want to dedicate himself to supporting Ukraine angered me deeply. The fact that I was being asked to go fundraise as the Ukraine guy for a guy who doesn't support Ukraine. Somebody can say, I support Ukraine. I will do a drum circle for Ukraine. But if you don't want to give them what's necessary to protect their hospitals, to protect their nursing homes, to protect their civilians, you don't fucking support Ukraine. You support a drum circle. You support...
Also, can you name names? Which candidate was this? Because I had similar gripes where like some of these candidates... like
Hartzell Gray. It was his name. I can send you the specific stuff, but after conversations, it was clear that I was told directly after private conversations that he supports Ukraine but doesn't want to do anything.
And I later found out like Oliver Larkin is sort of like not pro defending Taiwan from an American standpoint. And I was like, I'm not like, why are you on the anti-war panel then? I mean, like this seems a little, antithetical. It seems a little incongruent. And I was frustrated with the fact that like the donation link was not for individual candidates. It was, hey, here's all the money going to all of them. And it's like, well, I agree with some of them and I don't agree with some of them, and I don't want some of these candidates to get my audience's money. And so I specifically said like, hey, if some of these guys resonate with you, like go to these individual candidates place. But yeah, Ben, I guess you're listening. Like that would be my biggest gripe. It's like if you have this level of like inconsistency with being anti-war on this panel and you're asking us to donate to all of them, I'd say that's not really coherent with the mission of being anti-war. I think you got to find a little more consistency in the candidates, even if they are all progressive.
Mind you, Oliver and Hartzell were like the two main candidates. They were like the candidates that were like coming on and it was being talked about. Oliver, I gave more credit because he had a section on Ukraine, even if the language was like asterisks here, asterisks there, asterisks everywhere. Like he still like took the time to have like a position on the largest and most violent war ongoing for going on 5 years now, right?
Yeah.
Now the other candidate didn't have a public position. He has positions on the war in the Congo, on Sudan, and all these other conflicts that are on his website, but he doesn't have one for Ukraine. Doesn't mention it.
So
he doesn't tweet about it. He doesn't message about it. The only reason I find out about it is because I'm asking, hey, I'm going to fundraise for candidates. I'll fundraise. I will definitely fundraise. I care about politics. I care about the movement. But I'd like to know their position on Ukraine because I want to know if, you know, they're going to be for these, like stopping these nursing homes from blowing up, right? And that's my that's my lived experience. It's impossible for me to like remove the emotionality of that. And the fact that he didn't have a progressive position, that he in some ways has a worse position than even the Trump administration, because the Trump administration, they at least want to sell Ukraine weapons. They at least buy something. They get some of the air defense systems. They get some of the artillery shells. They get some of the intelligence necessary to defend their state. But under my assumption of his position and what I was being told, it seems to be that he doesn't want anything to go over to them. So then how do you defend the hospitals?
Yeah,
how
so
do
it's
you
not even
schools?
opportunistic. It's explicitly anti-Ukraine at that point.
Yeah, and I just want to know, like, if the position was, if we had an event where we were fundraising for progressive candidates, would PV have asked people like Crystal Ball or Hassan Piker to fundraise for a candidate that calls himself progressive if they wanted to, if their response to Palestine was, oh, yeah, I support Palestine. I mean, I don't really want to stop any of the aid to Israel. I don't actually want to do anything on this, but yeah, of course, but I support Palestine. Someone would say, do you support Palestine? I mean, AOC, for abstaining on a vote for defensive aid to Israel when it comes to these things, she got so much heat from parts and sections of the progressive left. A candidate cannot have a position on this whatsoever, not want to defend Ukraine after we asked Ukraine to disarm itself and threaten them with starvation, and then pro-Ukraine candidates are being asked to fundraise for them. There's a different social standard around the war in Ukraine. And I fear that there's an assumption amongst many of us that the Democratic Party can't become like the Republican Party when it comes to this issue. And that if we don't make sure that we check people, some level of purity testing is necessary to make sure you have some moral foundation, some moral center. If you don't check these people, then ultimately they can get into power, and with a slim majority, they can cause real problems.
Yeah. No, I agree with that completely. And it's like the fact that we're using Israel-Palestine as a purity test, but we have absolutely no smoke for our same side for Taiwan, for Ukraine is kind of ridiculous, especially like if you want to say, hey, I like a lot of the progressive policies that an Oliver Larkin pushes, except he has this one thing on Taiwan. And maybe if that's the distinguishing factor between him and his opponent, like, sure. But if he's on a panel about being anti-war, like you're not doing an anti-war panel at that point. You're doing an anti-Iran or anti-Israel panel, which is kind of what like most of it was. So yeah, I completely agree with that grievance.
Now, I don't think for me it's not just going to be a grievance, because this is what I wanted to announce on yesterday's stream. Now you can look it up on Twitter, you can look it up on Instagram, you can look it up on Blue Sky, or you can go directly to the website.
Yeah,
Ukraine track. Track Ukraine at trackukraine.com. Track Ukraine. No. Trackukraine.com. Track Ukraine on Twitter. Track Ukraine on Blue Sky. Track Ukraine on Instagram. I've spent the last every day since the PV panel working with graphic designers, working with Ukrainians in the armed forces and outside of the armed forces, those who have been bombed by both the Israelis and the Russians, to create a group of ambassadors that can go speak to progressive candidates, as well as any candidate that would like to hear from the perspective of those directly impacted by colonialism. That's going to be attached directly to our Track Ukraine website, our Track Ukraine social media handles, and we're going to track the record of every candidate running for office possible on Ukraine.
Okay. This is kind of like Track APAC, but like for the Ukraine situation. Ben fully endorses this idea in chat. So this, I think this is awesome.
Let me tell you how it works. First, we see a campaign hasn't said anything about the war in Ukraine. Let's use Hartzell as an example. We don't just open up by saying, why do you hate Ukraine and all the Ukrainian babies or whatever?
Hello?
Oh, can you not hear me? 1, 2? 1, 2? Hello? Hello, can you hear me?
Oh, you're back. Yes.
Yeah, you
Last
lagged
version
out
I
for
heard was
me. I
take
think we
this
both
candidate
lagged
as an
out.
example.
Yeah, yeah.
No, I think it was you. You're the problem, Dylan.
Yeah.
Clearly.
Uh-huh.
Okay. The last thing I heard was take this candidate, Hartzell, as an example.
What we would do is, for him, I know exactly the person because I have a list of Ukrainian socialists, non-socialists, Ukrainian people in the armed forces, people outside of the armed forces. I have a long list of a lot of Ukrainians seem actually really interested in participating in this, who would go and speak to them directly about the experience of the war, directly why they think it's necessary for ballistic missile defense that are slamming into hospitals, children's hospitals, nursing homes, that it's necessary, that America asked for Ukraine to disarm itself. Ukraine was asked to give up its atomic weapons. And Ukraine has been asked to depend upon the United States. And I do believe our promises matter, especially when it leads to the deaths of these people. And, our security is tied together in that manner. So they could go and talk about it from their perspective. They could talk about it from my perspective, whatever perspective they want. But they communicate to this person why it matters to them. Because my first inclination, right? I don't assume malice. My first inclination is you care about what you see. And a lot of people see what's happening in what they care about, whether it be Palestine, whether it be Sudan, but they don't see what's happening in Ukraine. And or they see,
because like you said, like a lot of the journalists have moved on for various reasons. Like a lot of people are just naive to the fact that it's still going on, the struggle still matters. Like it's just out of the conversation. So you can start off by saying maybe you're naive, and then move on from there, right?
Yeah, there's not an excuse for it, but that's easier to deal with and easier to fix, and you can fix it diplomatically in a way that's nice. And so we will have ambassadors for this. But when it comes to the idea of somebody doesn't want to communicate with us, does not want to talk to us at all, or talks to us but completely says, we're not going to support Ukraine, we're going to publicly list their positions and we're going to rank them on the issue. We're going to say, look, if you have a worse position than Donald Trump on the war in Ukraine, people care about this. This is the Democratic Party. This is the Democratic Party. This is not the Republican Party. Democrats believe that Vladimir Putin installed Donald Trump into the White House through misinformation and disinformation. Some of it's true, some of it isn't true, but that's the general perception of the Democratic Party. They see the type of government that's in Russia, and it's abhorrent, and how it treats homosexuals, and how it that allows no civil society. And they see what they've done to the Ukrainians, a people who asked us and them to consider their sovereignty when they gave up their atomic arsenal, and has continuously violated these treaties, committing atrocious war crimes, is engaged in cultural erasure and a form of ethnic cleansing in occupied territories, right? And when I say ethnic cleansing, I mean that they are moving in settlers to take the homes of the people they displace. And if you take a home as a soldier, you can stay in that home. That this is they're implementing policies that are clearly meant to replace the local population with settlers, right? Now, these types of things should appeal to progressives. So I imagine in conversations with people about whether or not we should align with Trump in displacing hundreds of thousands of more Ukrainians and what J.D. Vance is asking of them, I think that they'll respond positively. If they don't, then we will spend time to make graphics, to make clear to both people online, because progressives depend highly on online donations, but also the people in their own districts. We will design the graphics to specifically highlight their state. We will list the district that they're running in. We'll list their email. We'll list their phone number, and we'll see if you can run in the Democratic Party, a party that 98%, I'm not talking even fake numbers, but over 90% of Democrats deeply support Ukraine and want to give aid to Ukraine. How are you going to run in a party if people know that's your position, that is against aid and support to Ukraine? It is for essentially abandoning Ukraine. Hartzell's position, in my opinion, is currently abandon Ukraine, right? Whether that was something he stumbled into or whether that was something he's thought through, that is the current position. If they don't course correct, you should take out a Blair horn and you should be as loud as possible. An air horn, you should bring attention to it. And if necessary, we'll even spend advertising money, if that doesn't work, on trying to shift the party, because I will not allow, and I don't think other people who have a shred of decency should allow, the Democratic Party to take in our Marjorie Taylor Greenes, to take in our Lauren Boeberts, our Paul Ann Lunas, and start hearing Russia Today talking points in our own party, right? Okay, podcaster and TikTok foreign policy is fine online, but the aesthetics of Burning Man only go so far when you're dealing with the real lives of people. And if you're a congressperson and you're asking to have this type of power, you need to understand that that comes with a certain amount of public accountability, especially if you advertise yourself as anti-war.
All right. Yeah, fucking base, dude. That's awesome. Like, are you set this up like completely independently, and now you're just like
I funded it all out of my own pocket. I paid for the website design. I paid for the description. I'm doing everything. I'm funding completely out of pocket. It costs a bit, but primary seasons right now, and how I'd like this to go is I'd like to basically start making these posts online, start getting the newsletters, start getting everyone's emails, giving people like activist updates about like what's going on, and once people see what's going on and once people see that their position could become public discourse, they reevaluate their position and they course correct. People remember that there was a letter from Rashida Tlaib and a bunch of other progressives, Jamal Bowman and others, early on in the war in Ukraine that was later deleted after conversations with not only Democratic leadership, also those who were directly affected by the war. Right? That was the progressive wing of the party that course corrected after maybe they said some things that might not make too much sense or might not have been really that helpful to the Ukrainians. I don't see why the same thing can't be done on the campaign trail to avoid the problem, nip it in the bud before it becomes more terrible to fix, more expensive to fix, more like we're going to have a public discussion about Russophiles in our own party. Like I don't want that. And I don't think Hartzell is a Russophile. I don't think that. Let me be clear. But we can't allow Russophile takes or Russophile positions to seep in to a type of appeasement or a type of inaction on war.
Yeah. Hell yeah. Awesome. I mean, yeah, no, I super agree. I've already signed up. I showed the chat. I've pinned it. So I don't know, I'm looking forward to this shit. I will say this is like my one concern. When I see the Track APAC people, I see that they have a lot of like weird statistics on how they rate who and who is not like Zionist in their eyes and pro-Israel in their eyes, and they'll like try to completely write off candidates for maybe not so, in my eyes, legitimate reasons. What do you think like the ultimate criteria is going to be with this tool, with the graphics that are going to come out? Like, are you vehemently pro-Ukraine, or do you have a position that is like, this ranking sort of thing? With Track APAC, it's just like
we have essentially a three tier. We have three tiers. The first tier is green. And our standard is you need to join Azov, fight on the front. No, okay. Our standard is you need to just support aid to Ukraine until there's peace. At the very least, you need to not leave them hanging with no means to defend themselves, no means to protect their people. That really is the centerpiece in everything. If this project grows, I have other ideas for what we can aim for once Democrats take back the House, which is why I'm doing this now. I'm not doing this later. Primarily, I would point to the idea that Republicans held up Ukraine aid over immigration. Why can't we hold up any Republican priority over dealing with the war Trump said he'd deal with in 24 hours, and now we're going on 2 years and he hasn't been able to fix it. He hasn't been able to fix the situation. I would like to see Democrats win on that. I asked the vice chair of the party about this directly, and she said it basically would be nice, but I got no commitment. And so we need to act aggressively. We need to act with our heels in the ground and say clearly, like, look, we will make everyone in the party that is largely supportive of Ukraine know not only about these candidates in action, but also the parties in action if they decide that they can just kind of leave the Ukrainians to the wayside, because at least they're not Marjorie Taylor Greene, at least they're not Donald Trump, and they can repeat the same mistakes of both the Obama administration and the Biden administration, which, I mean, those are the mistakes that led to us having Donald Trump in the White House, able to kind of keep the Ukrainians stringing along. So long term, this is not just a question about pressuring candidates on the campaign trail. Eventually, I would like to talk about the party organizationally, what the party can do. I would rank inaction as failure. I would not rank, hey, I just said I support Ukraine. That fucking means nothing to me. In fact, if you say you support Ukraine and then don't want to give them aid, I think less of you than somebody who says Slava Russia in my chat. And the reason why is, to me, at least like they have a position. At least they believe something. You believe something's bad, but you don't want to do anything about it. And then you'll show such viciousness and anger when talking to you about domestic political issues or the wars that you actually care about, right? Because then you just sound like JD Vance. What did he say when he was running for Senate that he had to apologize to the Ukrainian community for before reversing it after he won? He said, I don't care about the war. I literally do not care when the Russians invaded. And so I don't just want to talk about, here's a random candidate where we're going to pick on the campaign trail. This is a general set of standards that we need to hold both parties to, but I also am realistic about what parties has
Mostly
been.
the Democrats, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's probably going to be mostly the Democrats that are going to be responsive to this, because that's where the base that cares about this is, right? Wine moms of America support Ukraine, and it shouldn't be that wine moms of America are somehow more progressive than like 20 something TikTok progressives. And I say TikTok progressives as in, the type of media consumption is different, and that allows whatever the algorithm to serve you to kind of choose a lot of times what you see, and sometimes it might be Russophilia, or might be sympathies for the invading power, whether it's based on color, tinted glasses from the Soviet Union or whatever. We need to make sure that we're organizing on this, because right now there seems to be an assumption that the party will just handle it. That, well, I don't need to go talk about Ukraine because the establishment cares about Ukraine. Well, it was Obama's establishment and Biden's establishment that mishandled a lot of this. Biden less than Obama, but Obama really mishandled it back in 2014. So obviously, like, they might like care about it in sympathy, but as we know, caring about it and doing something are two different things. So long term, I think that organizations, and I hate to say this, organizations like PV and candidates should be put on notice when organizing events and money that go to people who aren't going to support Ukraine. Put on notice with ambassadors, and if past that point they don't want to cooperate, then politics is politics. That's just how it works.
Yeah. Man, you're saying it so well. I have like almost nothing to contribute. I just have a solidarity boner, dude. Like, this is awesome. Full support from me. I really think this is important. I mean, it sounds like you have Ben's ear. So, people like to say, he just threw Dylan in there to throw Ukraine a bone. But I think he legitimately cares about this, and I think he'll dedicate time to it. If he doesn't, I mean,
and I don't think Sam is. I'm saying names like everybody knows these people, but I don't think these people are in opposition to Ukraine. I've had like earnest conversations with these people before, but I also don't know how they choose which candidates they're going to fundraise for, because if Hartzell said he didn't want to do anything about Palestine, would they have put him on with the people he put him on? No.
Yeah.
But Ukraine, that gets a pass. That's different. That's okay. And I think that standard has to be crushed, because not only is it wrong to abandon these people, but it's also electorally stupid, because again,
it's incoherent.
You're trying to run
makes
in the
you look
Democrat
like a hypocrite.
Party.
Like, yeah. All right. Awesome. Well, guys, check it out. I pinned it in the comments. Please go sign up for the mailing list. And fuck yeah, dude. This is really inspiring to me. I mean, like, the shit like this is like the reason that I'm like, damn, I can't wait to get big and like mobilize an audience to do something cool. I hope I get to do something half as cool as this and set a standard. So thanks, man. Appreciate it. Any other than the project? Oh, see, now I feel bad for like snubbing on Live and Learn with like, the 4 times this big audience, because this would have been great to announce there. I mean, I'll actually bring it up next week just as like a plug at the end when we plug all our stuff. But yeah, anything else you want to talk about?
Yeah, I would ask, like, do you think that PV, because this is the thing that got me, right? I align economically and politically much more with the general activist base at PV than I probably would with a lot of the people at the ground game. And those two are like feuding a lot.
Yeah.
I did both because, again, my position is, is this gonna help beat Republicans? Yes, then let's do it, right? But my philosophy about elections, my political philosophy around elections is winning. Okay, that's my political philosophy around it. It's kind of weird to me that I so quickly got from their group, yes, we will not make, none of this money will go towards an anti-Ukraine candidate, right? Do you think it will be easy to get organizations like PV to make commitments like, yeah, we won't organize money for anti-Ukraine candidates or candidates that won't support aid to Ukraine?
I don't know well enough, but my perspective is, if it is, then that's like, Ben, I'm listening, talking to you directly now. That's the stuff that would make me move away from such an organization, because it's like, okay, if you're signaling mixed messaging, if you're signaling things that are antithetical to the overall movement of anti-war or the overall movement of, pro-solidarity, anti-imperialism, then like I think that undermines the movement. And I don't I don't want to be a part of that. If there's a more consistent organization that's willing to be consistent and help those movements, I'm going to go with that instead. But I like the idea that there's like this friendly competition between them right now. I like the idea that both are, pushing the party in a way that can hopefully fundraise and beat Trump. So like until it becomes a thing where it's actively detrimental, which I think could happen. I'm not saying we're not close to that potentially, depending on which candidates they pick. I think keep getting active and donating and working and volunteering. So
do you think that if an organization like PV didn't, that that would be things that would make sense to cut ties over?
Yeah, I think the biggest concern that was raised in that panel, was it this week or last week, was, hey, this is getting usurped by tankies. And I was like not convinced that was the case. I mean, a lot of them are like from the Vosh community, and there's some tankies there, but I think there's also like, pro-Ukraine progressives. But if it gets to the point where this organization is actively demonstrating, here's one of our policy positions, and it is antithetical to what you believe, like we're not pro-Ukraine, we are not pro-Taiwan, and we won't make those concessions. Like maybe we'll throw a bone to a pro-Taiwan candidate, but ultimately we're fundamentally anti, or we're pro one China or something like that. I'll be like, all right, well that can't be what I attach my name to. That's where the line gets crossed, where it's like, these are now our hardline stances that are not what you believe.
I gave Oliver credit on Ukraine, honestly, partially because I just got to choose to pick my battles, right? I got to pick my battles a bit. Like I could go out there and I could make an impassioned speech for the self-determination of local populations and like the governance model of the Taiwanese and how they have a right to make these relations. But this is what I know. This is where I have my ties. This is like the war I've like put my life out there for, and will continue to until it's over. So that's what I'm trying to focus on. But I would wonder if an organization like PV, I think, would probably be most served not by necessarily going out there like, hey, I'm going to cut ties with Hartzell. Like, sorry, Hartzell, we've been shamed. We've been shamed into this. It would probably be better. Hey, we would like to facilitate a conversation between X and X group, because we know that these organizations or like Ukrainians have noticed that you haven't had a position, and they would like to talk to you about expanding your anti-war worldview. Right? I think
so not
that would
just
probably
like
be the
this
best role
purity
for them.
testing, but like, yeah, let's try to facilitate pushing these people in the right direction. And then if it becomes the case that these people are, I think if you give them the space to elaborate on this and they double down or triple down or even say even worse things that are like, pro-Russia propaganda type stuff, then it's like, all right, well, like maybe then you're not someone that we should be endorsing. I agree with that. Like that level of instant purity testing, I think is harmful, but being able to like really expand and try to push these people in the right direction is like even better. Like it's like, okay, like here, let's give them a chance too. Like this is not like a thought terminating end of the conversation. Well, final question for you then, like what would an organization have to do for you to be like, okay, I'm cutting ties? Because like you have it worse than me, right? Like you and I probably have very similar politics. You have like a deeper grievance, even though we agree on Ukraine. Like you have more personal stake and more investment in it, and they'll work with Hassan, and Hassan has fucked you over, right? So like, or it's just said like terrible things about you. What would your line be?
Look, it's not, hey, you brought on a commentator that isn't supportive of Ukraine. That's not what I care about. I don't care about the individual figures. Like, I'm sure I could go through the list of people they brought on and I could say, Crystal Ball said this about Ukraine. This person said that about Ukraine. This person, I don't care even really that much about the content creators. I care about the votes in Congress. I care about those who are going to actually have the power to decide who lives and who dies. That's my line. And so my line is life. My line is us actually standing with the Ukrainians. And that means aid to Ukraine. That means not abandoning them. That means supporting Ukraine. But it largely lays in what our country can most give them, which is ballistic missile defense and the capacity to defend themselves, while not doing it for neo-colonialist resource grabs and like the current policy of the administration. How much did we hear from the left? Outrage and Trump trying to just steal resources. It didn't get that much attention, even though this type of trend of trying to squeeze the Ukrainians from every ounce of value as they're struggling to survive is deeply immoral. I'd like to see commitments that they would make sure that the Ukrainians are our partners, not our resource pool. not our meat shield, our ally. That gave up atomic weapons for international security. That would be my standard. And look, I think a lot of this will be hopefully solved through Dreamers going into the cold, harsh earth. And what I mean by that is the left right now is a movement of dreamers, where many of our people have not really been elected to office yet. The ones who have found that cold, hard earth. That's why progressives in elective office, none of them are against aid to Ukraine. Some of them might be against seizing Russian assets, Ilhan Omar, like specifically, but it'll be for different like legalistic reasons rather than don't support Ukraine. Once you go out there and you have the dream of a peaceful earth, I was a Mike Gravel kid. People forget that, right? People view me as extremely hawkish due to my views on Ukraine, but I came up as a Gravel kid. That was my first like step onto the political scene. I think once they get out there and they realize like Trump tried to end the war. A lot of people tried to end the war, and the Russians kept going, even though we both made agreements to support the Ukrainians. The Ukrainians need the means to defend themselves, or hundreds of thousands of people would be displaced, and the homes that are taken over will be given to the soldiers that displaced those people, right? That's a deeply immoral situation to allow, considering that their security was tied to our security through the assurances we gave them. And maybe you wouldn't have given that assurance back in the 90s. Maybe you would have told the Ukrainians, give up your nukes, but we give you no assurances. The Ukrainians have to depend on that for their lives. And so abandoning them is an immoral position. And so I think a lot of them, through these dreamers finding Washington, finding the history, will hopefully realign their dreams to be inclusive of Ukrainian liberation and Ukrainian self-determination. That's what I hope to see. But if we don't see that, then we go fucking hard. That's the only other option.
All right. Fuck yeah, dude. Dude, you're like the most consistently based person in this space. Who the fuck else is putting their life on their line, their funds on the line, like actually holding these people's feet to the fire? You inspire me, Dylan. I appreciate you.
Thank you, SoyPill.
Yeah, I'll show
I'm
you
also homosexually attracted to you. I agree.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, awesome, dude. Let's see. I mean, yeah, let's see where this fucking goes. I'm gonna promote this again on Monday, and yeah, best of luck to you. This is fucking awesome, dude.
Thank you very much. I wanted to talk to you too about this specifically because I think that we do probably have the closest politics of anybody else that was on that show.
Yeah, I think you and I were the only ones who weren't like going in there to just like absolutely trash Israel for the sake of it and not literally talk about why war is bad, which is kind of how it was sold to me. Like I was a little taken aback by just like how wild it was getting towards the middle there. I mean, but yeah.
I'm more meant on the Live and Learn panel. That's why I messaged you. I didn't message anybody else.
I don't know. I mean, Pisco's. It's hard to peg Pisco down. It depends on who you ask. I think Pisco would be pretty aligned as well, and I think Hutch and I are absolutely going to be like, this is the coolest fucking thing ever. Knowing that you're doing this. So, like,
I didn't mean that they wouldn't support it. I meant that I thought maybe would give me an idea as to any issues I could run into or problems with this or anything like that, because I think that you're probably the farthest left there, which puts us probably closer to where we are politically. And so I thought maybe you could give me like an insight to these groups of like, hey Dylan, maybe that isn't a good idea, or like, this is how you should do it, Dylan.
Yeah.
Or like,
no, you've literally just every single concern I would have had, which is like, you're making sure it's not like an unlimited purity test. You're giving space for these candidates to evolve. You're like not just making this a black and white thing. There's tiers to this. Like, I think this is like absolutely perfect. So, I mean, hey, maybe something will come up, but like I'm full deep throat and support in this thing. This is awesome.
Thank you. What do you think of our logo, by the way? I spent like the weekend designing
let me bring this up. Does it show up on the?
I didn't show it on screen yet. I'll show it after.
Yeah. Well, then I don't know, because it just is coming soon in the mailing list.
I meant if you go to Twitter, you'll see our logo.
Oh, Twitter.
Track Ukraine on Twitter.
Track Ukraine.
Should be a
Twitter track.
Just
at Track Ukraine.
Yeah, at Track Ukraine.
At Track Ukraine.
Show you guys the logo after. Wait, guys. Wait, chat.
I'm not seeing anything. And to be clear, I can't search on Twitter.
You can't search on Twitter. You're banned. Oh, no. Why did you get banned? What happened?
Dumb joke that they were like, you're celebrating death. And I wasn't. I celebrated the death of a fictional. Oh wait, got it. I let some guy let me use his account. His name's the SoyPill. He let me log in as him. Oh, that is an awesome logo with the sunflower.
Yeah, I got it designed by Ukrainian graphic designers, and obviously you can see the yellow is curved to be like a wheat field kind of. It's the same colors as the Ukrainian flag, and there's 24 petals to represent each Ukrainian oblast.
Oh, nice.
Yeah,
awesome. All right, followed, promoted. We'll double promote next week, and Godspeed.
Awesome. And so that means if we start the pressure, you'll join us in the let me put on my best LBJ impression. You're gonna share all the posts, every single one that comes in your feed, right? Because you love Ukraine and you don't want to abandon Ukraine, correct?
Yeah, I mean, hey, I was doing the fundraisers for a while for the trucks. I don't know if you saw that. I don't know if you were on the live streams for that, but yeah, absolutely. I'll be retweeting that stuff. Hey, man, I'll show up to the politician's office and stand menacingly and then also ask them for a polite conversation. So whatever it takes.
Awesome. Funnily enough, I don't participate in military fundraisers because I take the divide between being a journalist and directly participating in war like really seriously. It's why sometimes I get irked when I get called like pro-Ukraine activist instead of journalist. But then when I do stuff like this, it's like, it's totally fair clarification, but it just makes it look like it can sully the journalism, or it can like sully the image of independence. But when I'm acting like right sector, far right, like the actual far right of Ukraine in their military base, like 3 miles from the Russian border, like, so after the war, are you going to bash homosexuals? Like I'm asking those types of questions. I think I'm not bought out by Big Zelensky.
Yeah, gotcha. All right. Well, awesome. Thanks so much, Dylan. I appreciate it. And yeah, if you have anything else later, let me know. Anything I can do to help. Sounds like PV, a band that at least wants to dedicate time to it too.
I saw PV followed us. So like, it would be great if PV facilitated this conversation and we started on a good note and we didn't start on a, on like some, because I really think that, the genuineness can like take a lot of the pathway here. Like I'll do a lot of the work.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Thanks again, man.
Thanks for talking to me. And, I know this isn't like a typical conversation, but I needed somebody to bounce this off of.
It's fine, man. No, of course. This is great. What's the prequel mean? We will look to your career with great interest.
That's good. That's good. Okay, man. See you later.
All right. Bye.